In the year 1271, Venice was the jewel of maritime trade, a city where east met west, where fortunes were made and lost on the tides of commerce. But for one young man, the familiar canals and counting houses of home were about to become distant memories. Venice in the 13th century was unlike anywhere else in Europe. It was a cosmopolitan trading empire where you could hear a dozen languages in the market square. The Polo family were middling merchants, not wealthy but ambitious. The Polo brothers, Niccolo and Maffeo, had already made one extraordinary journey to the court of the Great Khan. Now, they were returning, and this time, they would take young Marco with them. The Mongol Empire in the 1270s was the largest contiguous land empire in history. It stretched from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean. For merchants like the Polos, this represented an unprecedented opportunity. The first leg of their journey took them across the Mediterranean to Acre, then overland to the ancient city of Constantinople, gateway between Europe and Asia. Constantinople was still recovering from the Fourth Crusade, but it remained a crucial trading hub. The Polos would have encountered merchants from across the known world: Genoese, Pisans, Arabs, Armenians. From Constantinople, they traveled through the heart of the Islamic world, through modern-day Turkey, Armenia, and Persia. Each mile took them further from the familiar rhythms of Christian Europe. The Islamic world in the 13th century was experiencing a golden age of learning and trade. Cities like Baghdad, Isfahan, and Samarkand were centers of scholarship and commerce. The Polos would have been amazed by the sophistication they encountered. The Pamirs, the roof of the world, tested the Polos' endurance to its limits. At altitudes of over 15,000 feet, every breath was a struggle. The Pamir crossing was one of the most dangerous parts of the Silk Road. Many caravans perished in these mountains. The fact that the Polos survived tells us something about their determination and preparation. Beyond the mountains lay an even greater challenge: the Taklamakan Desert. The Taklamakan was known as the Desert of Death. The psychological effects of crossing such a vast, empty space were as challenging as the physical hardships. Many travelers reported hallucinations and hearing voices. After nearly 4 years of travel, the Polos finally entered the heartland of the Mongol Empire. Here, they would encounter a civilization unlike anything in medieval Europe. The Mongol Empire was remarkably cosmopolitan. Kublai Khan's court included Chinese scholars, Persian administrators, Arab merchants, and European craftsmen. It was perhaps the most diverse political entity in human history. The Great Wall, a testament to Chinese engineering and determination. For Marco, it was the first sign that he was entering a civilization of unimaginable scale and sophistication. The China that Marco Polo encountered was under Mongol rule, but it was still fundamentally Chinese in character. The Yuan dynasty represented a fusion of Mongol military power and Chinese administrative expertise. Khanbalik, the Khan's city, was perhaps the largest and most magnificent city in the world. Here, at the court of Kublai Khan, Marco Polo would spend the next 17 years of his life. Kublai Khan was fascinated by foreign cultures and ideas. He employed foreigners in his administration precisely because they brought different perspectives. Marco's appointment as a government official makes perfect sense in this context. As an official in the Khan's service, Marco traveled extensively throughout China. He witnessed the sophisticated agricultural systems, the complex bureaucracy, and the advanced technology of Chinese civilization. Marco's descriptions of Chinese technology, paper money, coal burning, the postal system were revolutionary for Europeans. These innovations wouldn't appear in Europe for centuries. By 1292, the Polos had grown wealthy in the Khan's service. But they were also growing old, and the political situation was becoming uncertain. Kublai Khan himself was aging, and his death might endanger their position. The Polos' decision to leave was probably wise. Foreign favorites often fell from grace when a new ruler took power. They had accumulated great wealth, and it was time to secure their gains. The return journey took them by sea, a treacherous voyage through the South China Sea and Indian Ocean. Of the 600 people who began the journey, only 18 would survive. The sea route was faster than the overland journey but far more dangerous. Medieval ships were at the mercy of storms, pirates, and disease. The Polo's survival was remarkable. After 2 years at sea, the Polos finally reached Persia. They had delivered the Mongol princess to her intended husband, fulfilling their final obligation to the Khan. In 1295, after 24 years away, the Polos returned to Venice. They had left as ambitious merchants. They returned as men who had seen the world. Legend has it that the Polos were initially not recognized by their own family. They had to prove their identity by revealing the jewels sewn into their worn Oriental robes. Whether or not the story of the hidden jewels is true, it captures something important about the Polos' transformation. They had been changed by their experiences in ways that made them seem foreign to their own people. Marco's great work almost never came to be. Captured in a naval battle between Venice and Genoa, he found himself in prison with a fellow Italian, Rusticolo of Pisa. Rusticolo was a skilled writer who specialized in chivalric romances. His collaboration with Marco was crucial. He knew how to structure a narrative that would appeal to medieval readers. The description of the world, as it was originally titled, became one of the most influential books of the medieval period. It opened European eyes to the wealth and sophistication of Asian civilizations. Marco's book was revolutionary because it described a world that was far more complex and sophisticated than Europeans had imagined. It challenged European assumptions about their own superiority. The book inspired generations of explorers and merchants. Christopher Columbus carried a copy on his voyage to the Americas, still hoping to reach the lands that Marco had described. Marco Polo died in Venice in 1324, at the age of 70. His final words, according to legend, were that he had not told half of what he had seen. 7 centuries after Marco's death, the routes he traveled are busier than ever. Modern China has revived the concept of the Silk Road, connecting East and West through trade and cultural exchange. Marco Polo's journey represents one of the great turning points in human history, the moment when the medieval world began to give way to the modern era of global exploration and trade. Marco Polo's legacy lives on in every traveler who ventures beyond the familiar, every merchant who seeks new markets, and every person who believes that the world is larger and more wonderful than they had imagined. The young Venetian who set out in 1271 to seek his fortune became something more, a bridge between worlds, a testament to human curiosity, and a reminder that the greatest journeys are those that transform not just the traveler, but our understanding of the world itself.
Thanks for watching.